Welcome back to another special edition of the Four Insight Podcast, Black Mamba Edition, episode 24. I'm your host, Mike Kobe. Joining me is a guy who's helped me first off start off this podcast. He's a big influencer and, just motivating me to, open my platform up. So I had to get him on here. I gave him episode 24 because of Kobe. Probably the biggest Kobe fan that I know. But without further ado, my guy, Marcus Tavarez. Appreciate you spending some time today, bro.
It's been a long time coming. I'm excited to see that you started this whole thing and this whole journey, man. Just to see you, just the conversations we used to have, just of you trying to get the steps and try to get it going and to finally see this come. It's an honor to definitely be here and just be able to talk with you and just be here. But I'm glad that this is going the way it's headed and it's going in the right direction. And of course, episode 24, we got Kobe, and this is a tragedy, man. That's just one of definitely the people that I look up to growing up. And to see him pass this year and just to see the way this whole year just shaped out, just a bummer, man. But yeah, just got to keep moving forward, keep pushing. But yeah, of course, man, it's good to be here.
Yeah, for sure, man. But we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Like you said, 2020 by far has been the most trying year, I think, for many people, around the world. It started off, in the NBA community, losing David Stern was the first one. And then, just losing Kobe. And, I remember that was it was a huge shocker. Like, it still doesn't feel real to me because I still remember vividly the day before and just that whole week, one, I remember Bron had just passed him on the scoring list, and, there had always been this kind of like unsaid rivalry between the two of them, while the two of them were playing. And just seeing after Kobe retired, just seeing they kind of open up a little bit more of a friendship and, them kind of, put whatever so-called beef, showing that wasn't really the case. And then he passes him on the scoring list. And one thing that, kind of stuck with me too was, there had been all this talk about who's the GOAT, who's the greatest, who's number one, number two, is it Mike, is it Bron, is it Kobe? And, me and you used to have that conversation at work all the time. And it always bothered me having that conversation because it's like, I don't dislike any of those guys, man. And it was like when we would have the GOAT conversation, it's like you got to put a man down. You got to put one player down in order to say you like another player. And I always hated the way that it made me feel because it's like, bro, I like all three of them. And, sure enough, it's like Dwight Howard, a guy who played with Kobe, as we both know, back in LA a while back, he and Kobe kind of built a friendship as well. And the quote he said was like, why does that hit home so hard? It was like, we need to appreciate people while they're alive. Remember he said that, and that was literally the day before Kobe died. And then, it's like the next day Kobe passes away, and it's just like, bro, what just happened, bro? But just talk about your first Kobe memory, and do you remember it, and what was it exactly?
Kobe memory honestly had to be that 81-point game because I'd always known, to me growing up, I guess I was like a little bit of a ball hog on the court, and people would call me Kobe, and I get it because growing up, he didn't really the Lakers that I saw in the beginning. He didn't have anybody to pass it to, so of course he's the ball hog. He's taking all the shots,
Yeah.
and that I started to tune into him and watch him, and I remember that 81-point game specifically, and just seeing just that Mamba mentality coming. Just going full attack mode. And you talked about all those three players. Talk about Mike. Talk about LeBron. Talk about Kobe. I appreciate greatness, and I love all three of those guys.
Yeah.
But to me, I didn't get to watch Jordan play, so I can't say that's my guy. I watched LeBron. I watched Kobe, and I just love the way Kobe approached the game. Just the way he was always in attack mode. There was no sit back and watch. It was just full on. Yeah, just strategic, man. A lot of people just call him a ball hog and just say, "Oh, he's just super talented," but they didn't see the work. They didn't see the time he put in, the attention to detail. And as the years went on, as he got later into his career, people started to realize that and see that. Even when he came out with Detail, that thing on ESPN, that was huge because people don't see that. They just see you show up for game day. They don't see the day in, day out, how he approaches the game and just the way he dissects everything. He's just, man, it's a mentor to me, and it's everything, man. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, going back into it, I think that was the main thing people really didn't understand about him until the end, was his mind, his basketball IQ, and his intelligence towards life, and just towards the game itself. And it kind of gives you perspective. It's like hindsight is 2020, and when we're watching it in real time, it's like, oh, he's a ball hog. Why isn't he passing to his teammates? You look back on history, and you're like, bro, yeah, he was playing with some bums. You know what I'm saying? Or it was
Man,
just
I mean,
like,
what you expect?
exactly. What do you expect? And he was just trying to will his team to victory. And I think that's the one thing, people who were fans of his and people who, looked up to him and idolized him, that was the thing that they loved about him, was the fact that he was going to do whatever it took to win, to it was, whether it meant scoring 80 or leaving it on the line or tearing his Achilles, to get his team to the playoffs, man. um I remember my first Kobe memory was, shoot, I was like, it was back when I was like 5 or 6, playing with him. Well, first off, watching him in the '01 finals, right? That was my first Kobe memory. And I remember it was him and Shaq. And I was like, man, who's this dude with this afro who keeps scoring all these points and dunking the ball, right? And then me and my brother would play NBA Street, and I'd always take the Lakers because they had Kobe and Shaq. And again, I was mad at Kobe for a time because Shaq got traded to Miami, and so at that time, yeah, Shaq was my guy, and because I was a big dude, and so I was like, Kobe got Shaq traded, blah 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 blah, and that's what the rumblings were coming out as well. And so for a time, I was like, I wasn't a Kobe fan. I was like, nah, he got Shaq traded, and then really what made me become a fan of his, what made me start to love him again, was the fact that he was being vulnerable. He was letting his guard down, and he was starting to break down, the film, and was starting to give the world like his insight, right? And he got me through a tough time when I was going through some adversity in football. And I was like, I would start to watch his clips, I would start to watch his interviews, and I'm like, this dude has no excuses, right? You just got to put the work in. And that's something I always try to take to sport and to life. And, just listening to his intelligence and to his particular, his, the way he just approached life. It was just like, look, I'm going to do what I got to do, and nobody's going to stop me. I'm not going to let anybody's narrative of what I'm supposed to be the reason why I don't, achieve what I got to achieve. Winners don't make excuses was one of his biggest sayings. And just losing him at such a young age was a tragedy. And I think it kind of hit home for a lot of people because just the way he carried himself, it's like it was this fearlessness, not necessarily like a guy, but it's like, almost like he can't die. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not.
To me, he was immortal. Like, how did, of all people, you'd not expect that.
Yeah,
Not expect
man.
that to go.
And just shocking and just so abruptly, it's one of those points in time. It's like my older sister told me that'll go down as like one of those moments in history, like Michael Jackson. You'll know exactly what you were doing, where you were, what was happening when it happened.
Yeah.
And just talk about that, if you would. Just where were you? Because we never got to have that conversation. What happened? Where were you when it happened and when you found out?
Sunday, and actually, I was eating breakfast, man. I was on a date with my current girlfriend, and I got the notification. It was TMZ or something like that. It was all over Twitter, and it said that Kobe Bryant got passed away in a plane accident. And I'm looking at it like, it's TMZ. I mean, I don't really trust everything they put out. So I was
Right.
like, that ain't real. Let me put this down. Let me go back to eating my food.
Right.
2 minutes later, ding, ESPN. They confirmed it. When I saw that, everything, bro, my stomach, heart, everything just dropped out of me. I immediately put my fork down. I couldn't eat.
Yeah.
I don't even think I said much. I was just in shock because, like you
Right.
said, of all people, I was not expecting that. Especially Kobe Bryant. Like, he's just a global like icon. Like, everybody knows who Kobe Bryant is. You can go anywhere in the world, you say Kobe, they know. People know who Kobe
Exactly.
is, and it was just, man. I just remember that day like it was yesterday. That's crazy. how much this year has flown by and just all the things we've had to go through. But I remember that being one of the first things that I was like, man, this year is going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Right. I'll never forget it. I was at my second job, right? And one of my coworkers was just like, "Yo, did you hear Kobe died?" I'm like, "Man, what, like, Twitter and all this social media stuff." I'm like, "Come on, man, like, get that out of here." And then I was like, "Where'd you hear it from?" And then they were like, "Oh, it was on Twitter or TMZ, like you said." And I was like, Psh, "I don't believe that." So I went back to work, right? And then literally, I'm about to clock off, and then it was like, blink. It was it was CNN. That was the one that made me be like, wait a minute. No, this is real. Like what? And then it was like CNN did it, Sports Center did it, Free Dawkins, a YouTube channel did it. I'm like, oh no, this really just happened, right? And it was just kind of like it was like a shock, like, bro, like this, nah, like something is messing with me. Like this can't be real, right? And I remember getting home and seeing it on the news and seeing like people like Stephen A. Smith and all these basketball minds like really like start to like confirm it. And I'm just like, bro, are you serious? Like, yeah, definitely. It was just a tragedy. And like you said, the world like outpoured the emotion. And, it wasn't, you know, people die every day and everything. We lose historic figures. Like we've lost many this year, but I think, it was also just like it was almost like he had just found peace with life and he was already, ready to take the next step. He had just got ready to take the next step. He had just won an Oscar and he was coaching his daughters. He had been a real family man and it just seemed like finally he had found some peace. And then it was just like for him to have his life taken away just like that. I think that was the most heartbreaking part about it. And also, he was with his daughter too, doing what he loved, which was coaching her. It's no sadder way, to go out like that, and, to the rest of those people who are on that plane as well, it's unfortunate. And it was a sad, sad time. You could feel the emotion, just in the community and throughout everything. So for sure.
On that plane, when they confirmed that later, and I was just like, what? Like, and the families that were involved and just everybody.
Yeah. So just finally, Kobe Bryant had the saying of Mamba mentality. What did Mamba mentality mean to you?
For me, Mamba mentality just meant just finding ways to get better every day, finding ways to separate yourself not only from the competition, but just from separating yourself from others, and just trying to be better, just trying to be not the greatest of all time or anything. For me, it was just more so how can I get the most out of what I can offer? Just how can I be better? And you can apply that to anything. I mean, I could apply that when I was playing sports. I can apply that to my job. Just there's always room for improvement. There's always just finding ways to get better and just work on your craft. So for me, that's what my mentality is. It's not just the game winners and the grit. Like all that's cool and that's what it is too. But at the same time, you have to put in the work in order to get to those moments, to get to those things that you want to achieve. So for me, it's just finding ways to get better.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think also it's the ultimate lock in and focus on the task at hand. If there's
Yeah.
anything I took from it, that was what it was. That, listen, all the distractions that go on around you, all the noise, all the influences that may deter you from your goal, you block them out and you keep your
Yeah.
eyes on the main thing. You keep your mind focused and you keep it clear. You don't let any distraction, you don't let anybody tell you what you can or cannot do. You don't allow any type of influence to deter you from what you're trying to accomplish. I think those are the main principles of Mamba mentality that anybody could take. And like you said, it's not just in sports; it's with everything.
Yeah.
Going on and moving forward, present day. You've gotten into personal training as you alluded to. Talk about how Kobe has had influence in your profession of personal training.
I'm gonna just piggyback on what I said. Just trying to find ways to get better. How can I help my clients? How can I be better? And like I love working with athletes. That's one of my things that drive me the most. Is how can I help that next generation, those next athletes that are coming up, and just by getting more certifications done, just getting my strength and conditioning specialist cert, and just getting that achieved and just getting more knowledge, because there's always more knowledge to get out there. There's always more information to take in, and just applying that to my work with them. So just finding ways to get better. And the next step would be nutrition. I feel like that's 70% of just working out and everything. And people, to me, the easy part is showing up to the gym and working out. The hard part is what you do when you leave. That rest of the 20 hours or whatever that you have by yourself, what are you eating? What are you putting into your body? Because that plays a huge role in what your body does. So that's the next step. Just getting more into nutrition focus and finding ways to help my clients in that way, in that perspective.
No, for sure. It's great to hear. And I think, for me, what I've been able to take is just, first off, always try to leave an imprint on anybody who you come into contact with. That was one of his sayings, especially as he got older and as he retired, was that you should always try to leave an impact on those who you come into contact with. And clearly he was able to accomplish that through his books and through just having his worldwide impact. So I think that's the one thing. And then, you should never be comfortable. You should never feel like you know everything. You should never feel like you've gotten to the highest pinnacle. You should always be climbing towards something. And, that's one thing I've been able to apply to life and to fitness, is that, look, you attain your big goals through small goals, and you just actively, progressively, improve yourself. And then by the time, a couple of years have passed or some time has passed, you look back and you're like, man, I can't believe I was ever that. I remember this was a big goal to me. Now this is nothing, right? That's the thing. It was built upon your skills, your talents, your knowledge, and you become a well-rounded person, all around. I think that's the main takeaway I've been able to, draw from my mentality, and apply it to life. But, going back to you, what got you into personal training, and what got you into wanting to work with athletes?
Honestly, I wanted a job. I was in college. I was a junior in college, man. Yeah, I wanted to work, man. I wanted to get a job. And I remember I wanted to find an internship for U of H. I went to U of H, University of Houston. And I'm sitting down with this guy, and it's a Parks and Rec department. And I've known him for a little bit, and I'm telling him what I want to do. And he's like, you know what? I don't think this is what you want. He said, I'm going to give you the numbers of this guy that I know. He's a VP of X company that I work for right now. And I want you to reach out to him and see what he can do. So sure enough, I call him right away, because I didn't even know this was an option. Just the industry that I'm in right now, the job that I have, I'm able to do. And I called the guy, I talked for about an hour, and he told me, he's like, I can definitely give you an internship, but better than that, I can give you a job. If you continue on the track that you're in, I have a position available out in Katy as an assistant director. And that just caught my eye, because that's a position you get that when you graduate college and you eventually become a director down the line. So that caught my eye, and he told me about personal training, and he told me, if I'm serious about it, I need you to get that done. I need you to sign up and take care of that, so I know you're invested into it. Because if I'm going to make an investment into you, then you got to make an investment yourself and show that you're committed. So I did that, and kind of took off from there. And I learned a lot from my mentors, just kind of growing up and with that, in that avenue. But yeah, that's just kind of, honestly, that's how it started. I wanted to find an internship. I knew I wanted to be in sports in some aspect, because my my degree was sports administration. But I wanted to be somewhere with athletes. And by training, by being with that, I knew I could accomplish those goals and be in a gym setting, which I love. Because after sports, that's kind of what I focused on. That was my next love, was just the weight room, just being in the gym. I'm not the biggest guy, I'm not the strongest guy, but I find enjoyment in working out, and it's all about being healthy and trying to live an active lifestyle, and that's what I gravitated towards too. So when he told me that that's a possibility for me, I jumped on it. And that was kind of how it started.
No, it's wonderful, man. Again, it's about finding something that we love to do, and make it. If you can make a career out of it, then that's the end goal, and that's the ultimate. And just try to reach the highest level you can in that profession and in that setting, which I know you're striving to do, just with working with you in the past and just the way you talk about it. So it is just great to see, people going out and doing what they love and them finding fulfillment in their jobs. I think too often people do things that they don't love, and then they leave these unfulfilled lives because they're not doing what their purpose is in life. You know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Now going forward, the NBA has just crowned a new champion, the Los Angeles Lakers. It all comes full circle. Yeah, we're
It's
gonna
a
talk about
yeah, man.
we're gonna talk
It's a
about
love hate.
it.
Man.
Talk about
I
it.
mean, I'm
Talk
happy.
about it. Go
I'm
ahead.
happy, man, because my boy Kobe and they did it for Kobe. But I said this to you already, man. This is honestly the easiest competition LeBron's had to face to get that chip. But it was the hardest journey. I would say it's the hardest journey because coming to the whole hiatus, having to take that time off, and they were just hitting their stride. They were looking really, really good. I was getting a little worried. Then for them to have that 4 month break and to just come back and resume, started out slow and kind of picked up momentum. It's just crazy. I don't know, man. I'm just disappointed in the Rockets. You know, I'm a Houston Rockets fan. But, I mean, I'm happy for the Lakers at the end of the day. I mean, championships back in LA, and can't be mad at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was, I'm just happy for the city of LA, just, with all they've gone through. It sucks that it had to come at the Houston Rockets expense because I'm a Rockets fan as well. But, I'm a LeBron guy. I love LeBron and, I love AD as well. And just what they've been able to do that this year with that team, it was just fun to watch them play and watch the
You know,
enjoyment they had. I think that's one thing I liked about their team, and it's very versatile, and just watch them all lock in, watch them adjust on the fly, to the different teams and to the different competition they had. And, we could talk about easy path, easy competition. And in the end, you play who you have in front of you,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know everybody was, wanting the Battle of LA. I wanted the Battle of LA.
I wanted that so bad.
The
I
fact
think
of
the
the matter
Lakers would have won, but I just wanted them to be tested like that. But
Well, the world
man,
didn't think so. The majority of people already had the Clippers crowned as champions, but we'll get into them after. I just, in the end, this is why you play the game. You play it to win, and you have to go out and execute. And I think the Lakers were able to do that. Yeah, they got some breaks, but in the end, they took the season seriously. They took it one game at a time, and they got the job done. Uh, and it was just amazing to see them, bring it all together and do it for Kobe and do it for the Mamba. Um, Now, other NBA teams, let's go ahead and talk about the Rockets as well. They made it to the playoffs. You know, they bought into this whole analytics and micro ball, which gave them some success in certain areas, but fell short in other areas. I thought, and I've voiced my opinions on the Rockets team. The one thing I've said is that I respected Daryl Morey for trying when many teams decided to pack it in whenever Golden State put their team together in 2017. Everybody seemed to say, okay, we're going to wait for Golden State to get out of the way. And he at least took it upon himself to say, look, I'm going to at least go for it. I'm going to try to put a team together and, try to compete with these guys. And, he did so in 2018 in trading for Chris Paul. No, I didn't like the trade because I felt like we gave up too much for a guy who was injury prone. I mean, he literally had been injured the past 3 years in a row. That was why I disliked the trade. But we had Golden State on the ropes, Chris Paul gets hurt. We don't get the job done. And I thought that was our best chance at that point. And then the next year, go to come out again. And then we trade away Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. I felt with Russ, what we gained as an advantage in certain areas wasn't enough to cover up the deficiencies we had in other areas. And then we decided to trade away Clint Capella. I felt like, again, you were giving up too much of an advantage in one area to make up for another area. I just didn't think that the Rockets had a well-rounded enough team to win in the playoffs, is my opinion. And unfortunately, it led to them not getting the job done against the Lakers. Both D'Antoni and Morey are out of the Lakers as of today. So the point is, or the topic is, where do they go from now? So what do you think about that?
the Daryl Morey situation, I definitely didn't see that one coming. I could definitely see Coach D'Antoni getting fired. That was, to me, not long overdue, but I knew it was coming. It was just with the system that we had, man. Like I just knew we couldn't win a championship like that.
Yeah.
Just with isolation basketball, there has to be teammates involved. The whole team has to be involved, and that's one thing I liked about when we had Chris.
Mhm.
Chris would let James fight like ISO in spurts, but James would also take that rest, and you see Chris kind of run the second unit and kind of do his thing. Everybody's getting touches, everybody's getting shots up. So when James comes back, he does his little ISO ball, he kicks out the shooters. They're making shots now. And I really think that season, that 2017 season, was our best chance to win. It sucks that Chris Paul got hurt and we went to game 7 without him. But even without him, I think we lost by single digits and we missed 30 something threes. And I want to say in the second half or the fourth quarter, whatever it was. But
Yeah.
being a Houston fan, it's tough, man. It's tough being a Houston fan.
I guess, I said if we could have had Chris Paul, who was at 28 when he first got to the Clippers, that trade, I would have had no problem with it. And I would have probably had more buy-in with it. With him being 33 and wanting a new contract, I thought that was going to only cap us. And it ended up doing so because we couldn't re-sign Trevor Ariza. We had to fill in with some role players that we picked up off the street. Now, some of them worked and some of them didn't, but that was the best roster we had, and I knew we weren't going to be able to bring that team back, unfortunately.
Yeah.
With D'Antoni's system, I mean, he's been known for being one of the greatest offensive minds in the game, but I felt, while James was going to get his game unlocked and he was going to strive offensively, what was going to happen in the playoffs? Because D'Antoni was not known for adjusting in the playoffs. And what is the playoffs about? Adjusting and, adapting.
Yeah.
And that was my problem I had with Daryl, with just that whole team as it was constructed.
I want to say even this year too, like the Capella trade really threw me off because James is the type of player that if he doesn't get his basket, he's kicking out. And the lob threat is one of James's like primary things that he loves to go to. And having Capella with the lob threat was like a big thing for us. So to get rid of that, you're literally saying, James, if you don't score, we're shooting a 3. Because those 2-point baskets that we get with Capella, that's money. And to take that away from us, to fully commit to the micro ball, I didn't like that move. And it showed in the playoffs with Lakers just dominated us, man. So
yeah, also they didn't have the 3-point shooting ability that they had with that 2018 team. I mean, this is not the Warriors guards or wings. I think that was another thing. It's okay to fully buy into the 3 when you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. I think that's a problem that the entire NBA kind of fell victim to. Everybody tried to copycat the Warriors culture and their philosophy and their schemes, but they didn't have Warriors players, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that was just a big mistake, just league wide. But, talking about the Rockets still, where do you think they go now? Ty Lue's off the board. He's with the Clippers. Doc Rivers is off the board. Gentry's off the board. So you have guys like the Van Gundy brothers. You have Kenny Atkinson. You have Sam Cassell out there. Who do you think they hire? Who do you want them to hire?
I really think they're going to go to Jeff Van Gundy route. I believe this is their second or third interview within the week. I hope they don't because we've seen that before. It just didn't work. And you know how I am, man. I want someone that's proven that's won. That's the only reason why I wanted Ty Lue. It's because he's won a chip, and I'm big on this. Like, if you're gonna show me something or tell me something, you have to have done it yourself. You can't lead me or show me something where you haven't gone. So that was one of the big reasons why I wanted Ty Lue. I felt like he could have the respect of James and Russ to kind of get to buy into his system and do what he wanted to do. But from here, man, I don't know what they're going to do. I honestly have no idea. But to me, it seems like they're going to hire Jeff, and they might even just tear apart the whole team and start over. I can definitely see that trying to happen.
Yeah, it might be time for a blow up, and the problem is that it's a couple years too late. You can get a lot of value and a lot of picks for James if you decide to trade James. If you're gonna trade Russ, you're not gonna have a whole lot of suitors, but that might be what has to happen because they need a GM. They don't have a coach, so it's just time for a reboot of the franchise. It seems like, but only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
Now, let's talk about these Clippers. What, in your opinion, happened to them? I mean, there are stories that came out, but from you watching the game, I mean, what do you think happened with them blowing that 3-1 lead?
Wait, ask the question again. You kind of blacked out on me.
the LA Clippers and what happened to them. What do you?
Oh, those jokers. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like I've never believed in playoff P. I don't even know who gave him. I think he gave himself that nickname.
That was
He's a
strike one. If you
certified.
gotta give yourself a nickname, bro.
He's a certified bum. That dude, he's good, but he hasn't been the same since he left Indiana, man. Like I don't know who the hell he thinks he is, but Kawhi, of course, he's Kawhi. But that team, man, you would think that team would make it to the championship, man. They had a damn good year last year without those two. They took 2 games off a healthy Warriors team. 2 games. And to add Paul George and Kawhi, it's like a certified championship. But man, I just don't know how the heck they just blew it up. I mean, you got guys on the bench that are there working day in, day out. You got Kawhi taking 6 days off rest, practicing every now and then. Paul George thinks he's LeBron James or Kawhi or anybody. I don't know. But I can see it coming. Definitely, man. That team just got some issues.
Well,
And it showed.
what I felt was it's very easy to play the game when you're the underdog and when you have no expectations. That was the team that they had last year. Last year, the fact that they took 2 games off the Warriors, it was like, oh my gosh, that was a great season. Now
They had a chip on their shoulder. Yeah.
had a chip on their shoulder, and it's easy to be a dog when nobody's expecting you to bite. Now everybody is expecting your best shot. Everybody knows you're the favorite. Everybody's deeming you the favorite, and everybody's telling the world that the Clippers are going to win the championship. And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like whether it was the distraction of the bubble, whether the distraction of expectations, and it just seems like they kind of always kind of walked around with the demeanor like we're already the champions. It's just a matter of us getting there, right?
Exactly. They had no urgency when they played. They thought we just got to show up. Everything else take care of itself. No one's going to beat us, and they just didn't play like they were hungry. Like you said, they were underdogs last year. No one expected nothing from them, and they lost that this year along the way somehow. They just lost it.
Yeah, I don't really ever think they had it. I think the only team they really played with a chip on their shoulder this year was the Lakers. I mean, two
That's
games.
the only team that show up to play. That's the only
Yeah,
team.
and that's the thing when you've never won a championship, when you've never gotten to the pinnacle, you don't understand that. Look, you have to take the entire journey seriously. I'm now low management and all of that. That's a different thing. If you're hurt, you're hurt. But in terms of just not having respect, for the season and for the journey and for the process of building a team, building camaraderie, building chemistry, especially when you have 2 new elite pieces, and these guys are stars. I mean, on that team that they had last year, nobody was a star. Nobody was above the collective. Now you have 2 guys being introduced, and it's like, wait, why is he getting privileges? Now that's becoming the talk amongst the team. And I think Doc Rivers kind of fell short of managing that, even though, yes, he's good at motivating, managing those egos, and managing those personalities who are looking at Paul and Kawhi a little bit sideways. I think also Kawhi being the silent, stoic, player that he was, well, this team required a leader and they needed it. And the fact that he didn't step up, I think that was where he kind of fell short, with this team. And, that's one thing about LeBron where, I mean, this dude is expected to win the championship every year. That's the expectation for every single team that he's on. So just that pressure and the fact that he gets to where he gets to every year. Now he doesn't win it all. I mean, it just shows how tough it is to win a championship in the league. But, the fact that he carries himself with that same mindset and with that same expectation every year, it's not easy. And I think the Clippers learned that lesson this year. So now with Doc being out and then bringing in Ty Lue and Chauncey Billups, where do you think they end up next year, the Clippers?
Honestly, the same. I see them being a top 5 team, getting some wins in the regular season. But come playoff time, I just don't think they're going to have enough. They're going to definitely have to get rid of Trez because
I don't think he's
just the way things unfolded. I don't think he's going to resign anyways. But I don't know, man. I just don't think they got it.
That team at its core too. They're getting old. I mean, they have still some good players and they're still functional. But I mean, I think Lou's about to be 34. Pat Bev's about to be 32. They've had some injury problems. Paul George is having some injury problems. Him and Kawhi can both opt out. I mean, so we'll see what happens with that team next year. But if anything, the good thing about them losing this year is now they're woken up in that you have to take the season seriously. And there's going to be more threats next year because Denver knows they can beat them. Denver at least has the confidence they can beat them. Golden State's going to
Yeah,
be
for
back.
sure.
The Lakers are going to be back. They have championship pedigree on that team. So it's not going to get any easier for them. So this is definitely going to be an interesting season. Now, for the Lakers, what do you think happens for them next year? Do you think they add to the roster? Do you think they're running back? And what do you give their chances of running it back and winning it again?
I've heard rumors just on ESPN, just like everybody else, that they're looking into getting Chris Paul, and if that happens,
Don't do it.
I don't know what they're gonna have to give up.
Don't do it.
But all I know is that I'll trade Kyle Kuzma for a new like ball boy. I don't even care. Kyle Kuzma didn't do a damn thing in the finals. He got a free ring. So if I'm the Lakers, I'll trade Kyle Kuzma for anybody.
Well,
So
he only makes $2 million is the problem. Now, I felt that he was trying to understand and learn what it's like to be a guy who learns how to play winning basketball, not just a guy who's able to have free range to do what he wants and to score and to put up numbers, which is kind of what happens with young players. You know, they're trying to get their first payday. And
yeah,
now here comes LeBron and this new veteran team that has expectations of winning it all, and you have to learn how to fit in. He also had the injury earlier on in this training camp, so he wasn't really able to fully integrate himself with the team. It's tough. Do you keep him and let him develop and see if maybe winning the championship was good for building his confidence, or do you say, your ego is too great for us to keep you here, and we try to use you to get a more serviceable player who we know we're going to get out of him? It's
yeah. It
tough.
just depends on who they can get. That's what it comes down to for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see what happens with them. I think their chances for repeating are pretty good. LeBron showing no signs of slowing down. He takes care of his body, and he's had the longest prime, I think, of any athlete in any sport. Dude's just an Iron Man. But I think they have good chances next year.
Yeah, and with AD kind of now getting that first one out of his way, we don't know what AD is going to bring next year so long as he stays healthy. Does he now add a next dimension to his game because now he has the championship monkey off his back? We
Yep.
saw what happened after LeBron won number one, what he did in that 2013 season, came back like a monster. AD has just as much talent and is a bigger athlete. So, he has room to improve his game. So only time will tell with them. Um, Going on and looking just at the rest of the West, obviously Golden State will be back. We're anticipating Denver comes back, Dallas comes back. Are there any teams who you're higher on than others for next year? And are there any teams that you think are going to fall off that made the playoffs this year?
I think Denver's going to make that push next year. Just having that experience under their belt, they're a young team. There may be, I don't know if they're a piece away. I think they're just maybe a season or two away. They just need experience. They're a good team, and especially as Michael Porter develops, they're going to be a scary team. And Jamal is going to develop. They have Jokic, and they have depth on their bench. So they're going to be a scary team, I feel. They're going to win at least 55 games if we get a full season. But
Yeah,
they're going to be a good team.
first person to put me on Michael Porter Jr., man. I'll give you props for that one still. It's like, I ain't know he was that good, and you telling me about him, me watching him, I'm like, yeah, if this dude develops, he could be the truth. And maybe that's what they need. They just need to
I'm telling you, man.
have a little bit more development. They either will develop and they'll get over the push, or they'll get over the hump. Or, in my opinion, they'll be what the 2015 Hawks were. A really, really deep team with a lot of serviceable players, a lot of good players, but just can never get over the hump. They weren't really built for the playoffs. We'll see. But I like Nikola Jokic. I like his control of the game and his facilitating ability. And just he was hitting threes that you were just like, bro, how does this dude keep...
Not even threes, just regular shots. Just take one dribble off the one leg at the free throw line. Like, this dude's something else. But
Right.
I feel like it's just going to come down to Michael Porter. Like I told you, I've been watching him since high school. I've seen this coming and in the rankings, and he went to Mizzou and went to college.
Yeah.
He didn't get a lot of playing time just because of injury, but he was projected to be a lottery pick, and he fell in the draft because of his injury. But he's a scary, scary dude, man. If he gets healthy, he's going to be scary.
Now going over to the East, you know, Giannis won his second, MVP. He won Defensive Player of the Year, but they couldn't get it done in the playoffs. Now, in my opinion, his team kind of reminds me of that first iteration of LeBron's Cleveland teams. A lot of guys who had distinct and defined roles, but really were not a championship or a playoff team. So now, he's 1 year out of his contract. There's scuttlebutts of him going to Miami, him going to Dallas.
Please go to Miami. Please go to Miami.
Boy,
I want to see that so bad.
boy, hey,
I
I
want to
don't,
see
I
it.
don't care what people say about this, man. I want to see him in Miami. Boy, I would love that. I
I would
would
love
love
that.
that.
Him and Jimmy, man,
And Duncan
and
Robinson,
Bam.
Tyler Hero.
Yeah, it'd be scary.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, he might stay with the Bucks. He might stay in Milwaukee. We don't know where his loyalties lie, but that expectation of him not being able to get over the hump is starting to build up. So we don't know what to do. Golden State, they've shown the ability to steal people like a thief in the night. So you never know if they pull off a trade, and if they're able to get Giannis there, then
Sure, that'd be nice too. I would like to see that too. I wouldn't mind.
I wouldn't. No, yeah, I'm good. No, I don't like the Warriors. I don't want them. But then again, that would be nice to see good basketball and just to see him thrive it with some great shooting, with some great floor spacing, though. But looking at other teams in the East, Brooklyn now with Kyrie and Kevin Durant coming back next year. What do you think their potential is, especially with Steve Nash being the new head coach?
I love Kevin Durant, and honestly, he's one of my favorite players.
My
Once he went to the Warriors, I lost a lot of respect for him for that move. To me, that was the weakest move of all time. I don't care what he says. I don't care how he justifies it. I don't care what they say. That was the weakest thing I ever seen in my life. Joining a 73-win team,
no,
losing
the same 70.
not even that, but just having a 3-1 lead against that team, losing to that team, then they lose to Braun, and then he joins them. It's just ridiculous. But I will give him props because I know they were going to go to the finals, but you still have to show up. You still have to perform. And for him to perform at the highest level the way he did, the way he took on the challenge, he earned those rings to me just by the way he performed. They were easy rings, I'll say that, but he did his part. He performed at a high level in finals, and he carried that team. So in those moments, so I got to give him props for that. Some of those shots he was hitting from 35, 40 feet, like clutch shots, man. Those are just crazy. So yeah, you got to give him props for that. But going back to Brooklyn, I honestly don't think it's going to work. Mm-hmm. I think Kyrie's going to be the reason that they destroy it. Just don't work and break down. Steve Nash, good player. I love watching him growing up. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles this situation, how he handles just the locker room and just the egos and Kyrie. And he can be, I guess, a tough guy to manage. But KD's just going to hoop. He's going to do his thing, kind of be quiet. But I don't know. I just don't see it working. They have a lot of good pieces. They have a lot of young talent. They're going to win. They're going to win some games, but I can just see it just not working out in the playoffs somehow. They're going to lose like a team like Miami or like a. I'm trying to think across in the East.
Boston.
If Giannis stays in Milwaukee, maybe they can lose to a Boston. I mean, I don't know. I just got to see it.
It's not. They're not a contender next year, I don't think. I mean, they'll be one of the top 5 or 6 seeds in the East. It'll take a little while for them to get it going, just with Kyrie and KD playing together for the first time, and KD coming off an Achilles injury. I mean, he's still a walking bucket. That's easily 25, just off of his skill. But him getting over injury, him learning a new system, learning a new surroundings. Kyrie has had a history now. I mean, it's 2 stops in a row, and really 3 because there was some rumblings last year. So
man.
Can he really prove himself to be a team guy and to be a leader like he wanted when he wanted out of Cleveland? Is the main thing. Definitely his skill, his talent is unquestioned and unmatched. But that's only part of the game. It's time.
And can he stay healthy? Can he stay healthy, man? He's
absolutely
always hurt.
because he wasn't able to stay healthy in Cleveland. He had 1 or 2 good years, and then ever since then he's been hurt every year since then. So,
Yeah, same thing in Boston, same thing in Brooklyn. Like this dude, I don't think he's played a full season since like 2012, man. This
right,
dude hasn't played a full season in a minute.
right.
But yeah,
So then, do you go the low management route with them then, knowing that history, or do you think that can't work? I mean,
with
because
him, I would, because their team is talented enough to where they'll be afloat. They'll be a top five team, even if he plays 60% of the games of the year.
Mhm,
They're that good. KD is that good to me. But I don't know, man. I would take that approach. I wouldn't want to risk it, especially when you're trying to get to a championship.
for sure, and Steve Nash has some good coaches on the staff. Jock Vaughn, and I think with Kyrie, KD, then you got Dinwiddie, Levert, Joe Harris, DJ, Jared Allen. They have a good team on paper. So I mean, they
Oh yeah,
have the talent to do it. It's just can it all come together? That's the main thing with Brooklyn.
exactly. Can they mesh? That's the thing.
Yes. Now looking at a Boston and like a Toronto, what do you think of those teams? Do you buy into them or do you think they just don't have it?
Boston to me doesn't have the depth that it needs. Toronto surprisingly had a really, really good year. They're actually really fun to watch. They play with such a fast pace, and they play a lot like Miami in the sense that they play together. They don't rely too much on one person,
Yeah,
and they just play good basketball. It's fun to watch.
absolutely.
But I could see Toronto going pretty high again, being a top three team. Celtics, they're a piece away. Jason Tatum's just unbelievable. He's a good player, but I just don't have that much trust in Jaylen Brown yet. He's a good player, but he's not an all-star to me.
Mm.
Kemba is just Kemba. He's a good player, but to me, he's just not that elite of elite. So I don't know. I feel like they need a different piece. They need another piece.
Yeah, you are not very high on Jalen Brown. I mean, I understand, and he's a good player, but yeah, every time we bring up the Celtics, you kind of like, Jalen Brown is who he is. I mean, he's dunked
Just
on.
because, like,
Yeah, he's gotten some good bodies,
he
man. He's
he has
dunked
some
on.
good moments. He has some good
Yeah,
moments. But to me, he's like if Pat Bev was 6'7", if Patrick Beverly was 6'7", that's Jaylen Brown. To me, that's Jaylen Brown.
yeah. I feel you
They
though.
both like to chirp. They both can kind of shoot. Of course, Jalen's more physical and get into the paint.
Yeah,
But to me, they're kind of the same player to me. So
yeah,
that's how I look at Jalen.
Hmm.
Just watching him play in the bubble,
yeah.
like in crunch time, you get to 2 minutes, you're up two or you're down a couple points. Seeing him go ISO instead of Jason, I'm just like, bro, like Jalen, you're not there yet. You gotta give it to Jason, not Jalen. Like Jalen's just not that dude yet. So I don't know. He's a good player, but I just I just don't think he's as good as you think he is. But I love the confidence. But he's just not there yet.
Yeah, true. And I mean, with Boston, I felt like they were gonna have a better season on paper with Kyrie out of the locker room. Not that Kyrie is a problem or is toxic, like KD says, but it's like I just felt like it just didn't mesh, and
Yeah,
for whatever reason, it was too many. It was too many good players, and everybody kind of played the same way. Everybody had the same, player type, if you will, on that team. They didn't have enough grit, enough dogs, enough specialists, and I just think that there wasn't enough ball to go around. And I thought if this had been the Boston team that went to 7 games with Braun in the conference finals, and you had just kept that team together, that would have been a better team going forward. Yeah, Terry Rozier is not as efficient of a scorer, as a Kemba, but I feel like he fit the system a lot better. Um,
definitely.
and
He fit the
also,
culture there much better. Him and Al Horford. Losing those two were big.
and Marcus Morris also, and
And Marcus Morris.
Aaron Baines. I mean, they when you look at it, they really have lost a lot.
That's what I'm saying. They lost their depth. They lost everything.
like
Their team. They have no depth. They're
I
top
mean,
heavy as bleep, like LeBron likes to say.
and so now, what does Trader Danny do? Does he, try to retool the depth on the team? Because I mean, I think he's been a little conservative as far as just you've had all these picks and you've done really nothing with them. You could have easily went out and got a star. You could have got out Paul George or Kawhi, but you decided to stay pat, and now, you have no rings to show for it at all. Um,
Yeah, if I'm him, I'm trading. I'm trading. Let's see. I'm trading Gordon Hayward and one more player,
yeah,
and bringing Russell Westbrook just to help us out. Yeah, I know nobody sees this, but I'm trying to get Russ the hell up out of Houston. So if Boston wants
Damn.
him, they can have him.
Hey, that doesn't work because he's gonna take the ball out of Tatum's hands. I mean, you're gonna have to give up James. I'm sorry, sir. But you're bigger on James than I am. But we can talk about
That's my
that.
boy. That's my favorite player, man.
I like James too, but to me, I feel like he's not a leader. I feel like you had Kevin McHale. Now, Kevin McHale may not have been the coach for your player type, but still, you had him. He got hacked. Then you had Dwight Howard. You couldn't make that work. He got hacked. Well, he left in free agency because it wasn't working out. Then you had Chris Paul, who held you accountable. You didn't get along with Chris Paul. Chris Paul got traded. I think now there's been too much of he is who he is, and he's been given too much power. As far as too much influence on the team and on the way that they play. So now it's just on him. Whoever they bring in as a coach, hey, you got to kind of have the tie loop. Like, yo, you got to buy in, and you need to enforce your will on this team in a different manner than just having the ball in your hand. You have to be able to give a little bit. And I think if you give a little bit, first off, they'll take the load off of him, which you kind of saw this year with him and Russ. But then the next step is just now you have to, employ your game and diversify it in more ways because everybody knows you're going to ISO, you're going to either attack the rim and look for a foul, or you're going to step back in three. You got to get the ball.
You can't do it by yourself. Not in the playoffs. Regular season, you win games. But when people lock in the playoffs, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, and part of it is the Mike D'Antoni system. Kobe talked about it.
That's what I talked about that too.
Yeah.
See, I before D'Antoni, James played just how he normally would play. He'd pass the ball, he'd do some back cuts, set some screens, he'd post up. You watch some of those highlights. This dude would ISO in the post and post people up, back up, and hit fadeaways, and he can do all that. It's just D'Antoni gave him so much power. I feel like that's how he has got to that point. So now you're right. He's got to a point where I'm used to this. This is what I'm used to.
And I want an MVP.
A strong-willed coach to get him out of that.
Yeah, I've led the MVP doing it this way as well as led the league in scoring. So how are you going to now tell me, it's kind of that Mike Jordan and Phil Jackson stage where
that's what I'm saying. You got to ask him. It's like, do you want to win another MVP or do you want to win a Larry O'Brien trophy? You got to pick one.
Exactly.
Because more often than not, it's hard to do both. And the way we played last year, these past couple of years, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
you just get one of those trophies, and that's not the one I think you want. So
yeah, and just going forward and looking at the rest of the East, looking at Toronto, like you said, very good team. A lot of interchangeable parts. I mean, they aren't the biggest team, but all of their players can handle. All of them can kind of shoot. They all can kind of play their roles, and they play good basketball. Like you said, that's the type of team if you're trying to teach your kid basketball, you have them watch the Raptors because they play a bunch of different ways. But, I think they're star away. And what are they going to do with the guys whose contracts are expiring? Who are they going to extend? Who are they going to bring in? Is the main thing. They're well coached, so they have that. Now it's just a matter of just getting some more star players to get them over the hump. But, wrapping up the NBA stuff, if you had to say who is your favorite to come out the East and the West next year, right now?
East. Man. I'm only going to say Miami because I really want Giannis to go, and I'm predicting that he's going to go there. So I'm going to stick with Miami coming back.
Yeah.
And then out of the West, I'm going to go with Denver. I'm going to go with a sleeper pick. I'm going to go with Denver. I can see the Lakers getting back there, but I'm going to go with Denver.
All right. You got Denver and you got Miami in the 2021 finals. Interesting. Yep. All right. Now we'll go on to some football just to close up the episode. First off, the Houston Texans have gotten rid of Bill O'Brien after 5 years.
Thank God.
Come on, Mark.
Long overdue. I would have fired him at halftime. Last year, we were playing the Chiefs. That's when I would have fired him. Be like, you know what, coach? Don't even come out here no more. After this, you're fired. Just get out of here. I would have fired him mid-game like, oh boy, from the Colts retired at halftime.
Right.
Same treatment I would have gave him. You're fired.
I mean, it's just when you lose like that, when you lose a 24-point lead, it's like losing a 3-1 lead. Like there's something.
It is. It really is.
There's something fundamentally wrong with your team and the blueprint, and you've to me lost control of it. And they waited too long to fire him. He was a guy. I kept saying he'll win you the division, but we already know what's going to happen. When you face a well coached team, you're going to lose. And so now he's out of there, and he sucked up a lot of our assets. We don't have any first round picks going forward for the next couple of years, or second round picks for that matter. You have a very expensive roster. So now what is it like trying to manage it for whatever GM comes in? I mean, you're gonna have to get rid of some expensive players, which may include even JJ.
Let him go.
The city of Houston will riot if they trade JJ Watt away, but
that's all right.
Might be what has to happen.
As much as we can. We could trade D-Hop. We could trade JJ. Take him and his HEB commercials with him. He's been a good player for Houston, obviously, and he is Houston. I don't see him getting traded. But to me, JJ, he's been injured way too much these past couple of years, and he's just not the same player.
That sounds good and well, but you're thinking about it logically. To me, JJ Watt's almost at that sort of Dirk Nowitzki. I'm not even going to say Kobe, but that Dirk Nowitzki establishment of like, if you get rid of him, you know what I'm saying? Like, with all he's done for the community, especially after Harvey. But if you have to make the unemotional choice, you got to get rid of him. Like you said, I
don't want to get rid of him now because he was one of the main reasons Bill got fired, according to the story. So because of that, JJ can stay now. Right. Because he went, timeout, coach, F all that, we ain't doing that, and went off at him in practice.
Yeah.
The fact that the team actually looked they were having fun last week, getting up and down. You know what? He can stay. He can stay.
One more year. But it is just crazy seeing all the players that Bill got traded. I mean, literally, he traded D-Hop. He traded Clowney. He traded Dwayne Brown and got nothing in return for those guys. That's my whole thing. It's like, I don't mind you trading people, but at least win a trade, man. Like,
exactly.
Literally got robbed on all the trades that you made, but he's out of there. So whatever happens to him, in his future is what it is. And now, hopefully, we can have brighter days for the Texans. Maybe get closer to a Super Bowl. Outside of the Texans, what has been your take on just the NFL season so far? They're dealing with COVID, and it's crazy. Just how much is spreading and how many games and practices are being postponed. A lot of injuries, but what has been your take on the NFL season so far?
I mean, so far so good. There's been a couple cases, of course, that have caused bye weeks and things, and I really want to see how this plays out. I'm not sure if they're going to finish the whole season. I don't know if it'll get to that point. I hope it does because, of course, I love football and I love that it's back. And selfishly, I want them to finish, of course. But I just don't know, man. There's a lot of good teams right now. I really like Green Bay. That's a good team right now. Of course, you got the Chiefs, and they just added Le'Veon Bell, and that's going to be a scary sight. If there's anything left in him, Andy Reid will find a way to get it out of him. So, there's just a lot of good teams, a lot of good football, and so I don't know, man. I love football, especially fantasy. It's stressful as heck, but that gives me a reason to watch every Sunday. So,
what about your beloved Cowboys and them losing Dak? Since you're a Cowboy fan now.
That was tough. I'm split right now. I would say I'm Cowboys and Texans, and you don't find many of those. I mean, I'm torn between two hard places right now, just because I left the Texans just because of the D-Hop trade and everything and how everything went down. And going to the Cowboys, of course, I love my boy CD Lamb. He's doing good.
Yeah.
But seeing Dak, man, Dak is just such a good guy, I feel like, and just such a good leader. And to see a guy just put his heart out on the line every single Sunday and Thursday night and just play and just see that happen, and to not have his contract it just sucks, man. But it sucks, but it's part of the game, and he took a gamble on himself, and it just didn't turn out in his favor. But I hope a speedy recovery and process for him, and hopefully he comes back better than ever.
No doubt. So then, final question that I asked, just like I did, about the NBA. Who do you have coming out in the Super Bowl this year?
AFC, I'm going to say Chiefs again. NFC, I'm going to say Packers. I like the Packers.
Yeah, I agree as well. Packers, Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I don't see anybody being the Packers right now. They're hot. And every other NFC team is flawed to the point I don't see them over them. The 49ers have had injury history, I think. out of it this year. The only team I see maybe giving, Kansas City trouble is the Patriots. If they can stay healthy and get COVID wrapped up, they're a bad matchup
Yeah.
for them. The Ravens have not shown that they can beat the Chiefs yet, so I don't take them seriously yet. Outside of that, I just I don't see Tennessee really having enough to play 4 quarters with them. The Bills don't have enough, in my opinion. So yeah, I agree. Chiefs, Packers in the Super Bowl. But final thing, just closing out. I always ask every guest to leave a final gem to the next generation of people and athletes, especially us talking about Kobe in the beginning of the episode. What would be your final gem to bestow upon the next generation?
I'm gonna just go back to kind of what we talked about in the beginning, and just for the kids that are in college, kids that are in high school, just find something that you love. Don't worry so much about the money and all that. I mean, eventually, if you're good at something, all that will come. The better you get at it, but just find something that you love and just work at it each and every day. And just don't be afraid to put the work in. That's the main thing. Just kind of work each and every day, and just try to find ways to get better. And eventually, whatever that goal is that you have will come. And I'll say the same to you, man. Just keep it up. Just as long as you remain consistent and keep putting that work in, keep trying to get better and improve, this podcast will go a long way, man. So that's the main thing. Just keep working. Don't be satisfied.
For sure, man. Appreciate it. That's a wrap. For Insight Podcast, episode 24, special Mamba edition. I want to thank my guy, Marcus Tavarez, for coming on, man. Appreciate you again, man. Just everything you've been able to teach me, and you motivating me, and you believing in me and coming on here, man. You can catch this episode on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, and all platforms streaming podcasts. Thank y'all.